What if everything you built with love, every dollar you saved, every dream you protected for years disappeared in flames within minutes? What if the person you love most in this world was suddenly trapped inside that fire, fighting for life, between breath and silence, between hope and goodbye? Tonight on Viva Flix Now, we bring you a heartbreaking and deeply emotional story that has left fans of 90 Day Fiancé in complete shock. This is the story of Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatin, a couple who crossed continents for love, a couple who risked family, culture, and everything familiar, only to face the cruelest test of fate. Sumit Singh and his wife Jenny Slatin invested their entire life savings, nearly $1.2 million, into building a restaurant. Through years of hard work and dedication, they managed to run the business successfully. Things were finally starting to feel stable. Peace had entered their lives. But yesterday afternoon, tragedy struck. Due to an unexpected incident, a devastating fire broke out at their restaurant. During the blaze, Sumit Singh became trapped inside. Nearly 40% of his body was severely burned. He is now in the ICU, fighting for his life. Jenny Slatin has been left completely shattered, mentally and emotionally. Not only is she facing the terrifying possibility of losing her beloved husband, but the dream they built with years of sacrifice has been reduced to ashes. The family has suffered a massive financial loss of nearly $1.5 million. Today, everything has collapsed. On one side, the restaurant is gone. On the other, Sumit Singh is battling for survival. Stay with us, because once this story begins, there is no turning back. For Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatin, success never came easily. Their love story was never smooth, never simple, and never accepted without resistance. They came from two completely different worlds, two cultures that clashed, two families that questioned their choices, and a reality TV spotlight that magnified every mistake. But through everything, they held on to one dream, a dream of independence, a dream of dignity, a dream of building something that belonged only to them. After years of struggle, criticism, and uncertainty, they made the boldest decision of their lives. They invested every dollar they had saved, their entire lifetime savings, into building a restaurant. This was not just a business. It was their proof to the world. Proof that their love was real. Proof that their sacrifices mattered. Proof that they could stand on their own feet. The restaurant was not built overnight. There were sleepless nights, construction delays, and crushing financial pressure. Many times, it almost broke them, but they refused to give up. Jenny managed operations with discipline and care. Sumit handled suppliers, staff, and daily responsibilities. Slowly, the restaurant began to grow, not just in profit, but in reputation. Locals started recognizing the place. Regular customers returned. Reviews improved. For the first time in years, peace entered their lives. Sumit often said the restaurant was more than income. It was their second chance at life. Jenny believed it was the foundation that would secure their future, especially as they grew older. They had plans, expansion ideas, dreams of stability, but fate was quietly waiting. What neither of them knew was that everything they had built over years of pain and perseverance would soon be destroyed in minutes. And the fire that burned their dream would also try to take Sumit's life. Before the fire, before the restaurant, before the ICU machines and silent hospital corridors, there was love. A love the world never believed in. When Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatin chose each other, they didn't just fall in love. They stepped into a storm of judgment, cultural barriers, age difference, and family opposition that followed them everywhere. From the very beginning, their relationship was questioned. Friends doubted them. Society mocked them. Even their own family struggled to accept what felt impossible. Jenny left behind her home, her comfort, and her country, believing love was enough. Sumit stood torn between tradition and the woman who had become his entire world. There were moments when walking away would have been easier. Moments when the pressure became unbearable. Moments when tears replaced words. They fought battles most couples never face. Public criticism, cultural humiliation, emotional exhaustion. Their love was dissected on television, judged by millions, and debated by strangers who never knew the full truth. But they stayed, not because life was easy, but because letting go felt impossible. For years, uncertainty followed them. Financial instability haunted their future. Every plan felt fragile. That's when the idea of the restaurant was born. It wasn't just a business decision. It was emotional. The restaurant symbolized freedom, independence, a future where they no longer had to explain or defend their love. Sumit believed success would silence doubt. Jenny believed this was their last chance to create security before time slipped away. They poured not just money into the project, but hope. Every brick laid felt like a declaration. We belong together. Every customer served felt like a victory against years of doubt. When the restaurant finally opened, it felt like a quiet miracle. After years of being known only for controversy, they were finally known for hard work. The restaurant was modest, but filled with intention. Every detail reflected their shared vision. Sumit wanted warmth and welcome. Jenny focused on structure and consistency. They showed up every single day. Sumit arrived early, checking suppliers and motivating staff. Jenny handled accounts, customer service, and operations with determination. At first, business was slow. Some days felt heavier than hope. But they adapted. They listened. They improved service. Slowly, word spread. Regulars returned. Revenue stabilized. For the first time in a long while, they slept without fear tightening their chests. The restaurant gave them routine, purpose, a reason to wake up every morning. They talked about the future again, renovations, expansions, even dreams of a second location. Then came the day that changed everything. An ordinary day, a normal afternoon, until flames rose, and in those flames, their dream, their future, and Sumit's life were suddenly at risk. And now, as Sumit Singh fights for survival in the ICU, and Jenny Slatton waits between prayer and heartbreak, one question remains. When everything else is gone, can love survive the fire? Most importantly, the restaurant restored their confidence. It proved that love was not their only strength, teamwork was. Against all odds, they had built something real. People who once doubted them now respected them. Customers praised their dedication. Staff trusted their leadership. For a brief, beautiful period, life felt balanced. There were no cameras, no public judgment, no family pressure. Just two people running a business side by side, sharing responsibility and purpose. But life has a cruel way of breaking calm moments without warning. While Sumit and Jenny were busy planning their next chapter, fate was quietly preparing a devastating interruption. A single afternoon, an ordinary day, a day that would turn everything upside down. The restaurant that gave them life would soon become the place where tragedy began. The day the fire broke out did not begin with fear. It began like any other hard-working day. For Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatton, it was one of those rare moments when life felt stable, almost generous. The morning started early. Sumit arrived before sunrise, unlocking the doors, checking inventory, and reviewing the day's reservations. Business had been improving steadily, and that afternoon was expected to be busy. Several large orders were scheduled, and the staff seemed unusually motivated. Jenny arrived later, carrying paperwork and wearing a quiet smile. She reviewed finances, double-checked supplier invoices, and spoke briefly with the manager about upcoming plans. There was talk of upgrading equipment, maybe even renovating part of the dining area. Nothing felt wrong. In fact, everything felt right. Customers arrived steadily throughout the day. Compliments flowed freely. A regular customer told Jenny, "This place feels like home." She smiled, because that was exactly what they had hoped to build. Around midday, Jenny stepped out briefly to handle an external task related to the business. Before leaving, she looked back at the restaurant entrance. Sumit was inside, focused and confident, moving between the kitchen and the floor. That image would later haunt her. Inside, operations continued smoothly. The kitchen was busy but controlled. Staff followed routine. No one noticed anything unusual. No warning signs. No alarms. No sense of danger. Then suddenly everything changed. What began as a small, unnoticed incident escalated with terrifying speed. Smoke started filling the kitchen. Flames spread faster than anyone could react. Panic erupted. Customers screamed. Staff rushed toward the exits. In the chaos, Sumit was still inside. Some tried to reach him. Some shouted his name. But the fire was unforgiving. Within minutes, the restaurant, once a symbol of hope, became a burning trap. By the time emergency services arrived, thick smoke had swallowed the building. Flames tore through the structure, destroying years of effort in moments. And inside that inferno, Sumit was fighting for his life. Outside, Jenny received a call that shattered her reality. There was a fire. Sumit was trapped. No one knew how badly he was hurt. In that instant, the day that began with hope turned into the darkest chapter of their lives. Fires don't announce themselves. They don't give warnings. They arrive quietly, then take everything. Inside the restaurant, the first signs were subtle. A sharp smell, a thin line of smoke rising. In a busy kitchen, those things are easy to miss. Equipment runs hot. Orders pile up. Focus narrows. No one imagined that within minutes, the place would become an inferno. Heat surged through the kitchen. Flames caught where no one expected them to. Smoke spread through ventilation, blinding eyes, and stealing breath. Panic came in waves. Chairs scraped. Plates shattered. People rushed toward exits they could barely see. Someone yelled for Sumit. He didn't run. He didn't freeze. Witnesses later said he moved back toward the kitchen, toward the danger, trying to help, trying to shut things down, trying to make sure everyone else got out. It was instinct, responsibility, the weight of ownership pressing down in the worst possible moment. But the fire moved faster than intention. Smoke thickened, turning air into poison. Flames climbed walls and devoured everything in their path. Alarms wailed, swallowed by the roar of the blaze. Somewhere inside, Sumit was trapped, disoriented, coughing, struggling to find a way through heat and darkness. Outside, people screamed for help. Phones were raised. Someone tried to re-enter but was pushed back by heat, so intense it felt like a wall. The building itself seemed to breathe fire. When firefighters arrived, the scene was already catastrophic. They fought their way inside through collapsing sections and blinding smoke. Every second mattered. When they finally reached him, the damage had already been done. Sumit was pulled from the flames with severe burns covering nearly 40% of his body. His clothes were charred. His skin blistered. His breathing was shallow. He was alive, but barely. Across town, Jenny was racing back, her heart pounding, unable to fully process what she was being told. The restaurant was on fire. Sumit was inside. No one could promise her anything. By the time she arrived, the building was a skeleton of smoke and flame. Their dream was gone, and Sumit's fight for survival had only just begun. Inside the burning restaurant, time stopped behaving normally. Seconds felt like hours. Breaths felt impossible. Every movement demanded strength Sumit didn't know he still had. The kitchen, once familiar, had turned into a maze of smoke, sparks, and collapsing shadows. Visibility was gone. Heat pressed against his skin like a living force. He tried to escape using memory, counting steps, reaching for walls, searching for exits he had used thousands of times before. But panic doesn't follow logic. Smoke filled his lungs. His eyes burned. Every breath felt like swallowing fire. At one point, he stumbled. Flames rolled across the ceiling, raining embers. Parts of the structure weakened. His clothes caught fire. Pain exploded through his body. Sharp, overwhelming. Still, he didn't give up. Firefighters later said he was found near a service area, curled slightly, trying to shield himself. Even in those final moments inside, he was fighting. Not just the fire, but the idea of surrendering. When rescuers finally broke through, the heat forced them back once before they pushed again. Protective gear melted at the edges. Oxygen tanks hissed. They found Sumit unconscious but alive. Nearly 40% of his body was burned, including critical areas. His pulse was weak, his breathing shallow. He was rushed into an ambulance as machines took over what his body could no longer do alone. At the hospital, Jenny collapsed in a corridor before even seeing him. Deep down, she already knew. Those moments inside the fire had changed everything. And survival now came with a terrifying question. What would life look like after this? Doctors moved quickly. Bright lights, hurried footsteps, clipped voices speaking in medical terms Jenny barely understood. Sumit was rushed into intensive care, surrounded by machines that beeped steadily, each sound marking the fragile line between life and death. Tubes covered his body. Bandages wrapped burned skin. His face was swollen, almost unrecognizable. Jenny stood frozen at the doorway. The man she loved, the man she had built a life with, was lying motionless, fighting a battle she could not fight for him. She reached for his hand, careful not to touch the burns, and whispered his name over and over, hoping somehow he could hear her. Doctors explained the severity of his condition. Nearly 40% of his body had suffered burns. Some were deep. Some would require multiple surgeries. Infection was a serious risk. The next 48 hours were critical. They couldn't promise anything. Jenny nodded, but her mind refused to absorb the words. All she could think was that just hours earlier, they had been planning renovations, talking about the future, laughing about small things that now felt impossibly far away. Night fell outside the hospital windows, but inside the ICU, time lost meaning. Jenny sat in a chair beside Sumit's bed, refusing to leave. Nurses came and went. Machines hummed. Occasionally, a doctor paused to check monitors and make adjustments. Jenny prayed quietly, not for miracles, just for breath, for one more heartbeat, for one more chance. As the hours passed, reality settled in. Even if Sumit survived, life would never be the same. Recovery from severe burns is long, painful, and uncertain. Skin grafts, physical therapy, emotional trauma. The road ahead was terrifying. And then there was the restaurant. By morning, news of the fire had spread. Photos of the burned buildings circulated online. What was once a place of warmth and hope was now blackened, broken, and unrecognizable. Years of effort had vanished overnight. Insurance questions surfaced immediately. Investigations began. Authorities searched for answers about how the fire started. But none of that mattered to Jenny in that moment. Money felt meaningless compared to the man lying unconscious beside her. Friends and neighbors began to show up at the hospital. Some brought food. Some brought quiet support. Others simply stood with her, saying nothing, because there were no words that could help. Fans from around the world also reacted. Messages poured in. Strangers who had once criticized their relationship now expressed concern and prayers. People who doubted their love were suddenly reminded that behind reality TV and public opinion were real human beings facing real pain. But Jenny barely looked at her phone. Her world had narrowed to one hospital room. When Sumit finally stirred, it was brief. A slight movement, a faint squeeze of her fingers. His eyes didn't open, but it was enough to make her break down in tears. It was proof he was still there, still fighting. Doctors explained that the pain would be managed, that he would be kept sedated at times to allow his body to heal. The coming days would involve surgeries, skin grafts, and constant monitoring. Survival was only the first step. As dawn broke, Jenny stepped outside the hospital for the first time since arriving. The air felt strange against her skin. The world was moving as if nothing had happened. Cars passed. People talked. Life continued. But hers had stopped. She thought about everything they had survived together. Cultural judgment, family rejection, financial fear, public scrutiny. They had faced it all hand in hand. The restaurant was supposed to be the chapter where things finally became easier. Instead, it became the chapter that tested them in ways they never imagined. Days passed slowly. Sumit remained in critical condition. Some mornings brought cautious optimism. Other nights brought setbacks. Jenny learned to live in hours, not days. Each update from doctors felt like a verdict. She slept in a chair, ate when reminded, spoke to Sumit even when he couldn't respond. She told him stories about the restaurant, about customers asking for him, about people wishing him well. She reminded him that he was not alone. Meanwhile, the reality outside the hospital continued to unfold. The restaurant was officially declared a total loss. Cleanup crews arrived. Investigators completed their reports. The dream they built brick by brick was gone. Financial pressure returned with brutal force. Medical bills mounted. Income disappeared. The stability they had worked so hard to create vanished in a single afternoon. But Jenny made one decision very clear. None of it mattered compared to Sumit's life. She refused to think about what if. She refused to think about blame. Her only focus was getting him through this. Slowly, painfully, signs of progress appeared. Sumit's breathing stabilized. His vital signs improved. Doctors used careful words like hopeful and cautiously optimistic. Each small improvement felt like a victory. When he finally opened his eyes for longer than a few seconds, Jenny was there. He looked confused, exhausted, in pain. But when he saw her, his eyes softened. He tried to speak, but couldn't. She leaned close and told him not to worry, that she was there,